Hello and good morning to everyone. Welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one-stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. This is Shyam Kaggod here, taking up the newspaper analysis dated 13th June 2025. Before I start the discussion, please do let me know in the chat section that I'm audible and visible for all of you. Am I audible and visible for all of you? Please do let me know in the chat section. Done. Let's start the discussion then. In today's session, I've taken a total of 9 articles from the Delhi edition of Hindu newspaper. These are from the subject of polity, international relations, economy, right, as well as the security issues. The discussion will be comprehensive in order to address all of your requirements to ace the civil services examination. If you like this initiative, do not forget to hit the like button. And if you're yet to join our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Before I start the discussion, certain important announcements. A lot of times when I go through the chat section or the comment section of my videos, students keep on asking, where can I get the PPT or the PDF? This is the QR code for my Telegram channel. You can scan this, join the Telegram channel, and after the session is over, the PPT will be uploaded there. Second, those who are aiming to ace the Civil Services Examination 26-27, our courses are available at a price of 17,999. If you use the code IAS English, you will also get an extension of up to 12 months. Once you enroll into the course, you can get access to the live and recorded English classes, be it of different subjects. You will get the access to the classes. You will get access to the reading material, the mentorship assistance, the prelims, as well as a mains test series. Those who are interested, do check out the details by clicking on the link provided below. And I believe a lot of you are beginners. A lot of you are aiming to crack the upcoming civil services examination. And a lot of you will also have doubts regarding what should be my preparation strategy. Right? What is the importance of the previous year question papers? What is the importance of the syllabus? How do I understand what is given in the syllabus? How do I apply, etc.? In order to assist you, we will be having a platinum session today, 13th June, live at 7 p.m., taken up by Sarmad sir, where he'll be discussing how do you understand the syllabus as well as the importance of the previous year question papers. Do join live. The link for the registration is provided in the description below. Second one, a lot of you will basically have doubts regarding how do you basically cover the entire syllabus? How do you practice mains answer writing, etc.? Because trust me, with all my experience and my intelligence, I can tell you one thing. Out of 3 stages in the civil services examination, the most toughest will be the mains answer or mains answer writing. You need to have a lot of practice. You need to understand the important facts and the points associated with that. Do join this platinum session, which will be held tomorrow, 14th June, 7 p.m. Again, the link for the registration is provided in the description. Now, let me start the discussion. The first article, very bad news for Indian civil aviation market and very sad day yesterday for all of us. The Air India flight, which took off from an airport in Gujarat, has crashed. There were more than 240 people on board. It is stated, according to the reports as of now, except one person, all the people who are on the board have passed away or killed in the crash. And I hope you understand this. Out of all of this article, is there anything that you can take away for the civil service examination? That will be the issue of civil aviation safety. There will be a lot of discussion associated with civil aviation safety. And there will be certain questions raised regarding these aeroplanes which are used by the civil aviation companies in India. For example, the aeroplane that is right there in the discussion right now is the Boeing company 787, Boeing Dreamliner 787. And this is not the first time that this company Boeing has been encircled into these particular issues of crashes, the aviation safety, etc. Earlier, there was one more version of this the flight, or let's say one more type of aeroplane that was released by Boeing. That was Boeing 737. 737, which basically experienced a lot of issues associated with safety. And it's been couple of years, or let's say some time, which basically talked about the issues of civil aviation safety concerning the aeroplanes which have been manufactured, sold by the company Boeing to various airline operators. In fact, there was a whistleblower report as well associated with the practices followed by this company. Because, mind you, some of you might be thinking, why are we not purchasing any other aeroplanes? Why not, right? Let's say an aeroplane with better safety, etc. In the global market, there are two companies, essentially a duopoly that you can see, which are controlling, which are supplying the major aeroplanes which are used by the civil aviation companies. One is the Airbus, one is the Airbus, and the second one is Boeing. Between these two companies, they control majority of the market share. And this particular company, Boeing, very recently, according to the whistleblower reports, has violated many of the norms, has tried to reduce the cost by cutting edges, has used certain components which have not been up to standard, which are not meeting the safety norms, in order to basically cut down the operational expenditure, sell these aeroplanes to the companies in order to earn profit. And when that particular whistleblower report was made public, when statements were given in public, multiple whistleblowers came forward, and the heavy penalties were imposed on this particular company. So now again, I'm not going to float any conspiracy theories here. Argument is very simple. The aeroplane has crashed, and it's a tragedy. Reason being, the 240 plus people who are on board, most of them have lost their lives. In addition to this, immediately after the takeoff, hardly around a minute after this particular takeoff, it has crashed on an hostel, a medical college hostel, that too at the lunchtime, where many of these particular students were in the hostel. That has again caused a lot of loss of lives. So issue is one, there will be a lot of discussion associated with civil aviation. And second one, what is the exact cause of it? Was it the pilot error? Was it, right? Let's say, because many of the experts are right now, because the final verdict is not yet out. What is the cause? We will have to wait and see. But many of the experts are basically saying, looking at how it has crashed, it might have happened that both the engines have failed. Both the engines of the plane have failed. If one of the engine fails, nothing new. A lot of times it has happened. The flights have returned back to the aeroplane, and there have been aversion of these disasters. But in this particular case, many of the experts looking at the footage say that it might have happened that both the engines have failed. So now we will have to wait and see. The second point essentially is the concept of a black box. There will be a lot of discussion associated with the black box. According to a report that was published in Money Control last night, the report basically said the black box has been, right, let's say, discovered. The black box has been recovered from the plane. Because generally, if you observe, whenever you talk about black boxes, the black boxes are installed in the tail of the planes. These are generally installed in the tail of the planes, and you can see the tail of this particular Air India plane is visible, not destroyed in this accident. Now, the black box has been recovered. And what is the important point associated with the black box? Black box essentially has two components. First component is a flight data recorder, FDR, the flight data recorder. And the flight data recorder basically will have lot of data associated with the flight. That is what was the let's say the distance at which the flight was or the plane was traveling. What was right, let's say, the speed. What was right, let's say, the other parameters regarding the fuel, etc. Lot of the information or the data associated with the operation of the flight will be recorded in the FDR. In addition to this, there will be second component, that is cockpit voice recorder, CVR, cockpit voice recorder. This will have all these recordings of what was discussed, what was spoken within the cockpit. All these, right, let's say voices will be recorded in the cockpit voice recorder. So these are the two components, and according to the money control report, this has been, right, recovered. This has been taken by the authorities. Now it is available. Now it will take certain time for the authorities to basically go through both of these components and then come to a conclusion as to what exactly happened. What was the cause of this particular tragedy? And another very important point, please make a note of this. Please make a note of this. India has set up the first digital flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, that is a DFDR, and a CVR laboratory, that is black box lab. It is also referred to as a black box lab. India's the first black box lab has been inaugurated. So happens that this black box lab has been inaugurated in the month of April 2025 in Delhi. Remember this. This has been inaugurated by the Civil Aviation Minister in the month of April 2025 Delhi. Earlier, what used to happen? If there are any such accidents and if we are able to recover the black box, we used to send it for analysis either to USA, we used to send it to England, or we used to send it to Australia. Now, for the first time ever in April 2025, this lab has been set up in India. Now, this lab will come into picture. The black box will be sent to the lab and the analysis will be done within India itself. Not we will not be sending it to the foreign country. So these are the two very important points regarding what has been the cause, etc. You please don't worry about it. Whatever is being floated in the WhatsApp, etc., don't worry, because until and unless the analysis is conducted and the government authorities will come to a conclusion, the cause of it, until then it will just be a conjecture. Okay, done. This is the first article. Let me go to the second article. In today's newspaper, before I go on to the second article, a very important point. A lot of the articles, rightly so, are about the crash that has happened yesterday. You do not read all of them. All of them are not important. Whatever is relevant, I've told you as of now. Now, in addition to that, the articles which have been mentioned in the editorial page or text and context page, these are mainly focused on the subject of economy. Lot of concepts have been mentioned, lot of information has been provided. We'll look at these articles one by one. Let me start with the second article now, a full page article, and as far as I'm concerned, very important, even if you're writing the upcoming mains examination. USA's a downgrade, and what are the lessons from the downgrade for India? Let's go point by point. There is a concept called as credit rating. There is this idea called as credit rating. What do you mean by credit rating? Whenever you want to take a loan, essentially, what is your capacity to repay? Have you been a good borrower in the past? Have you been a defaulter in the past? All of this information is provided in the form of alphabet or alphanumeric representation, which is called as a credit rating. In case of individuals, we simply provide this in the form of CIBIL score. It is purely a number. Whereas, if you are a government, if you are a corporate, etc., this will be provided essentially either in the form of alphabets or in the form of a combination of alphabets plus numbers, that is alphanumeric representation. And globally, there are three very important credit rating agencies globally. These are Fitch, Moody's, and S&P. Fitch, Moody's, and S&P, Standard and Poor. Now, in the context of sovereign credit rating, sovereign means what? Whenever you provide credit rating for government instruments, for a government, that is called a sovereign credit rating. In the context of sovereign credit rating, until recent times, the treasuries are nothing but the instruments issued by the government of USA. The government of USA issues instruments to borrow from the market. These are called as treasuries. Until recently, the treasuries of the government of USA were given the highest credit rating. The highest credit rating. But in the last 1 decade, because of the concerns raised by various experts, the two rating agencies, that is Fitch and S&P, have downgraded. Have downgraded. Is it okay? Have downgraded the credit rating. But in the context of Moody's, until recently, they had given the highest credit rating for the treasuries of USA. But in the month of April, even this particular credit rating was downgraded. Even this, right, was downgraded. That is, instead not April, but in the month of May, the downgrading was done. That is, instead of highest rating of triple A, it was downgraded to double A. Now, what is the issue here? What is the concern? The experts have raised the concern of increasing debt, increasing debt of the USA government, and the amount of incomes that they were generating, reduction in the income capacity as the reasons for the downgrade. They basically said, look at your debt, your national debt is increasing. Your debt is already more than 100% of the GDP. And with the announcement of the new bill, which is to be implemented, that is the big, beautiful bill of the USA government, the debt is further expected to expand. And on the other side, the government essentially has provided lot of, right, let's say subsidies. It has provided tax benefits to the companies. Earlier, when Mr. Donald Trump was the president, the tax on the companies, the profits of the companies, which was 28%, was reduced to 21%. After 2008 global financial crisis, the government provided lot of benefits to the companies. During the pandemic, government expanded its expenditure to provide benefits to companies as well as the households. So over a period of time, the debt has accumulated. It is increasing more than $36 trillion now. And on the other side, your income capacity is lower. So there is a concern which has been raised regarding the repayment ability of the government, and that's the reason the downgrading has happened. As a result of this, what is the outcome and what are the lessons for India in all of this? Let's understand both of them. When this downgrading happened, suddenly for a certain time period, the prices of the gold started to increase. Understand this. There are multiple reasons which have actually led to increase in the gold prices in the recent times. But after the downgrading was announced, the prices of the gold started to rise up again. Reason being, until recently, the treasuries of the government of India were considered to be the standard in the market. Standard in the sense of what? Standard in terms of safety. Standard in terms of the trust that the investors have put on the government bonds. Now, because of the downgrading, which has been done by the third rating agency, now the investors, rather than keeping all their money in the treasuries, started selling them, took this money and started investing in gold. And not just this, even the central banks around the world also started dumping their particular instruments and started purchasing the gold. And as a result of this, the gold prices started to increase. Everybody's okay? The gold prices started to, right, increase. And one outcome that you should remember, listen to me carefully. There is a basic understanding here. The market prices are inversely related to yield rates. The market prices of the bonds are inversely related to the yield rates. Now, you tell me, if investors will start dumping the treasuries, don't you think the supply will increase? With more supply, market prices will go down. And with lower market prices, the yield rates should start going upwards. And this has actually happened. This has actually happened. The yield rates have started to increase. And with the yield rates going upwards, what will happen? Remember this. There is a concept called as a yield gap between Indian government bonds as well as the USA government bonds. And if the yield gap becomes lower and lower, That is, Indian government bonds offer a higher yield compared to USA government bonds. If the yield gap becomes narrower, the foreign investors will start getting worried. They will be worried about their investments in India. There will be impact on investments. Done? Okay, this is a point number one. What is the impact of this on India? I'm sorry, what is the implications for India in all of this? Implications are very simple. The implications are, even in the context of India, there are certain measures that the government of India should undertake now. There are certain lessons that we should understand from whatever is happening in USA. What is the lesson here? You cannot keep on just spending money, increase your, right, let's say, the amount of a debt just to ensure that certain, right, let's say, objectives are met. What kind of objectives? For example, there is a discussion associated with freebies in India. All of you heard of this? There is certain discussion associated with the term freebies in India. What is this idea of a freebie? Come elections. Now there is a state election season. Earlier also we have seen this. In the upcoming elections also you will see this. The political parties will start announcing lot of welfare schemes. And when these kind of welfare schemes are announced, it will automatically have an impact on the amount of expenditure incurred by the governments. And when the expenditure incurred increases, specifically those expenditures which do not contribute to, let's say, economic parameters. What do you mean by economic parameters? If the government of the state or the government of India spends to provide skilling, that's a different expenditure. If the government will provide free electricity to everyone, that's a different expenditure. If the government spends money to develop, right, let's say, healthcare infrastructure, school infrastructure, port infrastructure, etc., this is always considered good. Reason being, either you're contributing to growth or development. But if you start providing free electricity to farmers, free bus transportation to everyone, free electricity to everyone, etc., these will in turn contribute to increasing expenditure, contribute to the higher borrowings, in turn contributing to debt. So the concern is, right now, India's sovereign credit rating is the lowest within the investment grade. That is, generally you will come across the India's sovereign credit rating, which is the lowest, that is BAA. So in that particular situation, when you keep on announcing these kind of expenditures, the general government debt essentially covers the debt of both center as well as state. So the general government debt already is in the range of 80 to 85%. It is in the range of this. It is declining. Don't worry. So the general government debt is already high. If you do not control these kind of expenditures, if you keep on spending more and more, this will contribute to higher debt, and this will put a lot of pressure on, let's say, repayment ability of the governments. And it has been found, understand this carefully, it has been found that the countries which have higher amount of a debt but are not experiencing very good growth rates, in such cases the lenders have started demanding more rate of interest. Is it okay? The lenders have started demanding more rate of interest. Reason being, you already have very high amount of borrowings. You are not able to generate sufficient growth, which means there is a risk. There is a risk in giving loans to you. So you will have to essentially give me more rate of interest if I want to give you a loan. In addition to all of this, there is also a concern associated which is called as the crowding out. Remember this. This is also mentioned in the article, crowding out. What is the issue of crowding out? If the government increases the borrowing, this will increase the rate of interest in the market. And when the rate of interest increases, the private sector will not be happy with that. They'll simply say, last year I borrowed 100 rupees at 6%. This year, for the same 100 rupee, it is 7%. So I will not borrow. I will move away from the borrowing market. This is called as crowding out, which will also have an impact in terms of investment from the private sector. So there you go. These are certain lessons that the government of India needs to understand. Focus on controlling your the expenditures which are categorized as a freebies or which can be referred as freebies. Higher borrowings will also lead to higher interest burden. This may in turn lead to reduced sovereign credit rating or downgrading of sovereign credit rating, which you do not want. This will further put an pressure on your borrowing as well as repayment. It will also lead to crowding out, which is not preferred because it will have an impact on private sector investment. So everybody's okay. So whatever is given in the full page, I've given the important concepts and summarized these particular concepts one by one. So 2 points: why the sovereign credit rating has been downgraded in USA, what is the impact, what are the lessons for India. Those are appearing for the mains, and even those who are writing next year, look at the descriptive question here. These are the kind of statements which are given in the mains. Focus on this. The recent downgrade of US by Moody's is a movement for India to pause, reflect, and enact a financial discipline. Elaborate. 15 marker question, 250 words. I've given one more question associated with this. Fiscal caution and prudence are no longer virtues for crisis moments. They are the foundation for resilience in the age of new normal. If this kind of a statement is given in the mains examination, trust me when I say this, lot of you will be confused at as to what is the exact meaning of the statement. Because these kind of statements generally you do not come across in the books, but UPSC can give you these kind of statements. Essentially, what does it mean? It simply means when there is a let's say crisis, that is not the only time period for you to implement reforms. The controlling of expenditure, fiscal prudence should be one of your objectives always. Do not treat only the crisis as a time period to implement the reform. Okay. MCQ number 129. Consider the following statements regarding credit rating agencies. These provide ratings and credit guarantees on the borrowings done by the companies. Is the statement true? No. These do provide the ratings, but they do not provide the credit guarantees. Right? That is essentially if the company doesn't repay, I will repay. That is the credit guarantee. These are regulated by SEBI in India. Yes, SEBI is the market regulator. The credit rating agencies can rate private and public sector entities. Yes, the government, the government owned entities, private sector companies, yes, all of them can be covered by the credit rating. 2 and 3 are right. Only 2 of the statements are correct here. Let me go to the next article. Trump's tariffs and US India trade agreement. Okay. Now, what are the important points? Let me tell you what has happened in the last 3 months in a very quick summary. Now, government of USA, that is the new administration of USA, has announced various tariffs, different rate of tariffs which are applicable to their trading partner. And this has been discussed earlier also. Do not worry, it's a fact now. The Trump administration has announced tariffs applicable to different countries. Now, against such tariffs, five companies in USA took the government, took the administration to the court, filed a case against the policy of the government. They filed a case saying that because of these policies, our business is getting affected. And finally, the court in the USA, the trade court in the USA, ruled in the favor of these five companies and reprimanded the administration. The argument of the administration was that there is national security. There is a national security angle here. USA has huge amount of a trade deficit, and the government of USA is trying to protect the domestic market because of the national security angle, and the government should be allowed to impose a such tariff so that they will bring the other country to the negotiation table and extract certain benefits from the agreement. They want to extract the benefits. They want to, right, get certain benefits from the other trading partner. And for that to happen, the government in USA should have the power to impose a tariff. The court in the USA ruled in favor of the companies and said, just because you say it is a national security issue, it should not be treated that way. Just because you say it is national security, we should not take it at the face value. And you do not have, right, let's say arbitrary powers like this to, right, change the trade agreements which are already there. The agreements which we have with the trading partners, you alone cannot make the changes like this, because there is Congress, there is a Senate, there is a process to follow, right? So you cannot basically say it is a national security issue and violate the provisions of the Constitution. And that was the reprimand issued by the court in USA. Against this order, the administration went to appeals court, and the appeals court basically put a pause on the order issued by the earlier court. So as of now, what is the status in USA? The government of USA is allowed to impose tariffs. This is essentially the status as of now. Now, this is one side of the argument that has been provided in the article. The second side of the discussion, which is what is the connection with India? What is the connection with India, right, with all of this happening in the USA? Point number one, listen to me carefully. The government of USA, when Mr. Donald Trump was the president earlier, in the first term, had announced tariffs on steel and aluminum. Had announced tariffs on steel and aluminum. How much? Steel was imposed with a tariff of 25%, aluminum or aluminum with 10%. And this was announced in the first term. This now has been increased to uniformly 50%, including country India, applicable to India's steel and aluminum export. This is point number one. Now, argument of the writer here in this article is that on one side, the government of USA is trying to have trade negotiations, that is, negotiations associated with the bilateral trade agreement with India, PTA. Bilateral trade agreement negotiations are happening. Right? Many experts are saying that we are very close to the agreement. As of now, nothing has been officially communicated regarding what are the provisions. They are simply saying we are very close to the agreement. But the argument of the writer is, on one side, the government of USA is negotiating a trade agreement. And on the other hand, there are two important things to make a note of. The policies of the administration of USA targeting India's exports have not stopped. Policies of the government of USA targeting investment by USA companies in India have not stopped. And the government of USA is negotiating a trade agreement with China. And because Mr. Trump is usually transactional in nature, that is, he always believes in give and take. More importantly, take. He wants to get the benefits, doesn't want to provide benefits to other countries. That is his agenda, America First policy. When they are negotiating a trade agreement with China like this, what is going to stop the Trump administration in the future to violate the provisions which have been agreed under BTA? They can do it. Even after signing the agreement, they can simply say, no, 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 we are not happy with this provision. If you do not agree to the change in the provision, we are going to impose these kind of policies again. So the argument of the writer is very simple. India is negotiating trade agreement. India should consider certain factors, get all of these factors written in the agreement, mentioned in the form of provisions in the agreement. What are the interest areas? I will tell you in a minute. But in addition to this, the writer also simply says Government of India should ensure that the provisions of the bilateral trade agreement are not violating any of the provisions of World Trade Organization. It is binding to the provisions under World Trade Organization. Now, what are the interest areas that India should protect and ensure? These are mentioned in the BTA. Point number one, the agriculture sector. Agriculture sector. USA is very much interested in exporting many of the products within the agriculture sector, India so far, with whichever country we have signed the trade agreement, we have tried to protect the agriculture sector. Whether India should open it up, if India will open it up to USA, then other trading partners will demand the same thing. But more importantly, if the government of India opens up this particular sector for imports from USA, there will be certain imports, let's say from the dairy sector, which are going to harm the communal harmony in India. That is, we have certain followings in terms of, let's say, consumption of products such as milk products, where we follow certain norms associated with what kind of food or feed is provided for animals, which is not followed in USA. So it might have an impact on what is our communal beliefs or the social beliefs that we have. Second one, the farmers in India, it may not be in a position to compete with, let's say, the imports which are coming from USA. That is also a concern. Second area, data protection. Data protection. Couple of years ago, the government of India, that is through the Reserve Bank of India, implemented certain policies. The policy that I'm referring to is the concept of data localization. That is, whatever is the important financial data that has to be stored within Indian market. You cannot take it outside India. But the government of USA is against that policy. They want the American companies which are operating in India should be provided the freedom as to wherever they want to store data, they should be allowed to do that. They can locate their servers outside India and store the data in that server. The government of India is against the issue of, right, the data being stored outside India. They want the data to be stored within India. The writer simply says government of India should stick to this. They should simply stick to this. Do not allow the American companies to, right, basically to arm twist, right, the policies or let's say the policymakers in India. The third important area that government of India should protect in the negotiations is the tariffs. The tariffs. First and foremost, when government of USA announced a tariff, it looked at the trade deficit. But when you calculate trade deficit, you should include both the goods as well as services. The government of USA simply says India has a trade surplus. But the GTRI, the Global Trade Research Institute, simply says that is not completely true. Reason being, when USA says India has a trade surplus, they are looking at only the goods or the merchandise. USA also exports services. So if you include both goods and services, USA might end up having a trade surplus, not India. So the government of India should get certain guarantees from the American side regarding tariffs. Why it has been increased, why Indian exports have been targeted, right? And once the agreement is signed and implemented, right, the government of USA should not be allowed to impose the tariffs, additional tariffs, etc. We should go back to the earlier system. Right, so these are some of the important areas. In addition to this, many other recommendations have been provided, but these are the most important areas that the writer simply says government of India should include provisions to protect these, right, essentially when the agreement is signed between India and US. And so these are the two important points which have been discussed in the article here. Now, associated with this descriptive question, again, two questions I've given. Same concept, but in two ways. Discuss the areas that must be covered in the India USA trade agreement to ensure that India's interests are protected. 15 marker, 250 words. The trade agreement between India and USA must be carefully balanced to protect India's interest. Right? So, again, a 15 marker question, 250 words. Both of them are talking of the same thing, but the wording of the statements or the questions are slightly different. Let me move on to the next article now. Fourth article, urbanization and ideal transit solution. What are the points being discussed here? Point number one, over a period of time, that is in the next couple of decades, India will experience growth. But majority of this particular growth will come from urban areas. Okay, the contribution to the growth will come from urban areas. And when you are experiencing growth from the urban areas and the population is majorly present in the rural part of India, you will observe mobility of this population, movement of this particular population from rural areas to urban areas. And when this population will enter into the urban areas, there will be a lot of pressure on the infrastructure providing mobility. Infrastructure that will facilitate mobilization. Again, please understand the difference here. Mobility, transportation, both are not one and the same. Lot of times you will use both of them interchangeably. Transportation essentially talks about infrastructure, whereas mobility talks about your ability to use that infrastructure to move from point A to point B. Mobility is more inclusive. Mobility is is talking about the ability of the people. Okay, so there will be a lot of pressure on the mobility infrastructure. Now, what kind of mobility infrastructure is available in India, and what is the recommendation? The two very important areas which have been discussed in this article are: one, metro projects. We have metro projects in multiple cities in India. In addition to this, we have, let's say, road transportation infrastructure. And in order to promote a road transportation itself, which will contribute to mobility, the government of India in recent times has announced multiple reforms. For example, the government of India has announced reforms wherein the government will provide financial assistance for purchasing and operating EV buses. EV buses are being promoted by the government of India, where we can purchase. That is different. Right? City corporations will be provided with the assistance. They can purchase and they can operate these EV buses. Now, what is the importance of both of them? Listen to me carefully. No doubt, metro projects as well as road transportation projects will help in improving mobility in India. No doubt, it will help because these are generally provided by the government. Again, not completely subsidized. Generally, these are provided by the government or government owned entities. This is made accessible in certain way to the common man. A lot of times we prefer to travel by metros because it is cheaper compared to the other sources of transportation. But the importance of this is, no doubt, these kind of reforms will help us in moving towards the goal of achieving net zero by 2070. It will help us in achieving the goal of net zero emission by 2070. But at the same point of time, there is a concern here. What is a concern? If you talk about metro projects, the amount of investment expenditure, the amount of investment that has to be done in developing the metro projects and operating metro projects is not a small amount. The government of India is providing assistance, but what about the recoveries? What about the recoveries? Various analyses have shown that in order to recover the amount of expenditure that is incurred, the number of passengers should be higher. Number of passengers should cross a certain level. And the analysis also shows that it is very difficult for the metro projects to recover the investment in a shorter duration. It will take a very long time period. That is one issue. Second issue, if you talk about bus projects, if you talk about bus operations, that is promoting, let's say, the mobility in the road transportation. If you talk about buses, no doubt it will also help us in ensuring mobility. It will help us in movement of the labor, movement of the people from one region to another region, one point to another point in the cities, etc. But even in case of the buses, there is a concern of investment that you are incurring. Correct? But again, I hope you understand this. In that case, some of you will be asking me a question, sir, why is the government of India promoting EV buses then? Why is the government of India promoting EV buses? Listen to me carefully. This was discussed in this year economic survey. In the economic survey, the data simply shows that the accessibility for the urban population for this kind of mode of a transportation is very less in India. How much? 37% of urban population generally gets access to this mode of a transportation. But the advantage of promotion of, let's say, EV buses is that we are heavily import dependent when you talk about EV production in India. And if you basically promote, let's say, EV production of two wheelers and four wheelers, etc., the import dependence will be much, much higher. That is, we will continue to be import dependent. Now, rather than promoting only the production of two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and four-wheeler EVs, why not we promote production of the EVs, that is the buses? That is, in simple terms, yes, right? By promotion of EV buses, because they will be able to handle more number of passengers, more number of people, right, who are moving from point A to point B. Now we will be able to reduce the import dependence that we might be having if I'm promoting only the production of two-wheeler and four-wheeler EV. That is the precise reason the government of India is promoting the transportation through EV buses. So these are some of the issues. So finally, what is the solution? If there is a problem with metro projects because you are not able to recover, if there's a problem even associated with, let's say, EV buses, right, because the investment expenditure is higher, etc., then what is the solution? What is the way forward? The writer simply says, when you do a long term analysis, how much you are investing, how much you are recovering, etc., there is one more method of a transportation which can be instituted in metro, in cities, etc., that is using tram. How many of you have seen trams? Trams are essentially these, right? Let's say in cities such as Kolkata, you must have seen there are certain, right, let's say the transportation vehicles just like trains only, but these will be transporting, right, mobilizing people within the cities only. These are essentially trams. So according to the analysis of the writers, they say trams are a better mode of a transportation in India in terms of, let's say, cost of investment, the recoveries, right, the emissions, as well as the long term, right, let's say revenue generation potential. And in fact, if you see, there are multiple cities in India, for example, Kolkata, where tram is operating, and other cities they were operational. But in the state of Kerala, now the government of Kerala is trying to institute or basically implement a project where they are instituting the project of tram transportation in one of the cities. So these are certain important points. Finally, the way forward that they have recommended is we should try out a third methodology of transportation, or let's say mobility, that is the tram method of transportation. Done? Okay. So these are the very big articles that I've covered. Next, important articles, but simple information. Article number 1, right, associated more with prelims now. Section 13 of Disaster Management Act. Now, what is the importance of Disaster Management Act? The Disaster Management Act institutes a particular system in India as to how we react. How do we basically contain whenever there are, right, let's say natural disasters or man made disasters? And for that, the government of India has passed an act. There is a DMA 2005. Now, under DMA 2005, until very recently, there was one section, Section 13. Section 13. And what was the importance of Section 13? Section 13 basically stated that in case of a disaster, the authorities can give a report to the government to basically allow for loan waivers. Is the point clear? Under Section 13, whenever there are, right, let's say disasters like this, the authority will submit a report recommending loan waivers to be announced by the government. And why this is there in the discussion? Last year in Wayanad, one of the areas of Kerala, there was a disaster. And when this disaster happens, not just in Kerala, but any region for that matter, generally you will see there is a lot of lives lost. But in addition to that, lot of assets are also lost by the people. Somebody might be having a manufacture unit that will be destroyed. Somebody might be having a household that would be destroyed. Somebody might be having agriculture land, crop standing, etc., that will be destroyed because of the disaster. In such cases, the Section 13 provided certain relief to the people who are suffering because of the disaster. Let's say somebody has taken a loan from a bank and there was a landslide because of which I have incurred a huge amount of losses. Now, at that particular point of time, when I'm already under a lot of stress, I should not be forced to repay the existing loan. I've already lost the source of income. Now the bank is coming behind me, running behind me for collecting the repayment. So that was the importance of Section 13, under which, based on the recommendations, the loan waivers could be provided. Certain relief could be provided to the people who are suffering because of the disaster. The government of India has made an amendment. It was even discussed in the parliament, by the way. The government of India made an amendment this year and has removed Section 13. And because the Section 13 has been removed, now in the High Court, right, in this particular High Court, the central government has submitted an affidavit saying that because Section 13 has been removed, the people who have suffered because of the Wayanad landslide, we will not be able to provide any kind of a loan waivers to them. And that is the context, the background in which the Chief Minister of Kerala has written a letter to the central government at basically addressing the Prime Minister, requesting the Prime Minister to reinstitute Section 13 under the Disaster Management Act. And so this is basically the update. Please make a note of this. Next article, USA, China and rare earths. In the recent times, a lot of discussion has been happening in the context of critical minerals. In the context of critical minerals. And what is the discussion? In the month of April, as a retaliation to the policies of the administration of USA, the Chinese government came out with a new policy. The new policy of China's government simply said, if certain critical minerals are or products are exported from China, any country for that matter, in such cases, before even being exported, they should take approvals. They require approvals. First, you take the approvals from the government agencies and then you are allowed to export. From India itself, there are more than 30 companies which have put up a request to import, right, the magnets, the critical mineral magnets. And in that particular context, right, there is a lot of discussion which is happening. The government of India is negotiating with China. The USA government is also negotiating with China. Germany already, that is the German companies which would be affected, they got a waiver. They have been able to import these particular critical mineral magnets, etc. So, in that particular context, yesterday there was an update. What was the update? The president of USA, as usual, had posted in the social media saying that the deal between the deal between USA and China has been signed, agreed upon, and China will be exporting critical minerals, allowing the export of critical minerals to USA now. Later, certain statements are also issued from the Chinese government, clarifying what has happened. According to the statements given by the representative of Chinese government, now they have allowed export of certain rare earth elements. Right? Certain licenses to export rare earths have been provided by the Chinese government. And what is a rare earth element here? Essentially, there are 17 elements which are classified as rare earths. Right? So, this is an update associated with whatever is happening in the context of critical minerals. And in that particular context, you should also know that the government of India is implementing a lot of reforms in order to either import critical minerals or to promote production, refining, recycling of critical minerals in India itself. For example, in the month of January 2025, the government of India has announced National Critical Mineral Mission. How many of you heard of this? NCMM, National Critical Mineral Mission. Under this National Critical Mineral Mission, total amount of investment envisaged is more than 34,000 crore rupees. More than 34,000 crore. And by the way, right, this particular policy is important. Right? Why? India is import dependent in many of these critical minerals. India is import dependent in many of these critical minerals. Done? Right. So this is an update to whatever is happening surrounding the discussion associated with critical minerals. Now let's solve an MCQ. Please try it out before I give you the key answer. Consider the following statements. Indian government has declared 30 minerals as critical minerals. Is the statement true? Yes. And I hope you understand, from one country to another country, there will be different number of critical minerals announced. Do not imagine that universally critical mineral number is just 30. No, from one country to another country it will vary. There is no production of critical minerals in India. This should be straightforward. Incorrect. Why? There are deposits of critical minerals in India. The government of India is auctioning these critical minerals. Already this process is happening. So obviously, right, this is incorrect. Third statement, I know a lot of you will be confused and lot of you will jump to conclusion to say I am wrong. India only imports and does not export any critical mineral. Right? First part of the statement, you will be happy. It is the second part of the statement where you will basically say, Sir, I don't think so. It is correct. My dear, understand this carefully. India only imports, does not export any critical mineral. Incorrect. It is incorrect. Does India export a critical mineral? Yes. I hope you understand. Yes, India exports a critical mineral. And before you people jump up and say, Sir, where is the source? Tell me the source, etc., I will give you the source. Don't worry. But before that, the key answer to this question will be option A. Have a look at this article. Please have a look at this article. I've taken this article from Business Line. Business Line. This article has a lot of relevant information. Please go through this article. But I'm more focused on the last paragraph of this article provided. Can everybody see the last paragraph? Read the last paragraph. Or else if you simply say, Sir, mobile is there, I can't read it, I will read it out for you. India also exports neodymium to some Asian countries, said the sources for processing. Neodymium is one of the critical minerals, by the way. It is one of the critical minerals. So here is an article which, right, specifically says India imports, yes, but India also exports. India also exports. That's the reason I'm saying this statement is incorrect. India also exports. Right? So right option for this question will be option A. And do not worry. Those are wondering, sir, from where will I get this article? Let the session be over. I'll upload the PPT in my Telegram channel. You can download. One more question for you to practice. And those who are writing mains examination. I don't know how many of you know this. Last night, I took a session covering all the important schemes which are needed for you to write the civil services mains examination. Even if you're writing any state civil service examination, mains, etc., prelims for that matter, there are certain schemes that you need to read and understand. Totally 15 schemes I've covered in the yesterday's session. It is there in the YouTube channel of ours. If you have not yet seen, please do check it out. Okay. Now, India's import dependence on critical minerals is a threat to its growth ambitions. Discuss and recommend a way forward. 15 marker, 250. Okay, let me go forward. Couple of more articles, small articles. Next article, Global Gender Gap Report. Global Gender Gap Report. The latest edition of Global Gender Gap Report, that is the 19th edition of this report, has been published by World Economic Forum. Remember, World Economic Forum, 19th edition. And according to this particular edition, India's ranking has slid down. It has gone down. According to the last edition, it was 129th out of 146 countries. Now it is 131st. It is 131st out of 148 countries. India has been ranked at 131st out of 148 countries. Please remember this. Point number two, right? Point number two, on what basis the ranking is decided? There are simply four parameters. There are simply four parameters. Right? What are these particular four parameters? I'll just underline it. Once you download the article, please have a look at it. Right? The four parameters are economic participation and opportunity, educational attainment, health and survival, and political empowerment. According to different reports, India's performance in these indicators has improved But in one of the indicators, it has actually gone down. That is political empowerment. Right? Because the participation of women in the parliament as a percentage of the total numbers is lesser, right? That is one of the reasons why India's performance in this indicator has actually gone down. And overall, India's performance also has slid down compared to other countries. That's the reason the ranking has gone down from 139th to 140. I'm sorry, 129th to 131st. And so these are certain important points. Beyond this, they have discussed about Southeast Asia, they have discussed about Bangladesh, etc. As far as I'm concerned, not relevant. Just focus on what is relevant. Next, the central government has announced that the schemes which will continue in the next the cycle of the Finance Commission, that is the 16th Finance Commission cycle, which will essentially start in the financial year of 26, 27, and go on up to 30, 31st. Right. So in this 16th Finance Commission cycle, certain central government schemes, it could be centrally sponsored schemes or central sector schemes, they will have to pass an effectiveness test. What do you mean by an effectiveness test here? Whenever you talk about budgeting, there is one concept in the budgeting, right? There is a concept called as outcome budgeting. How many of you heard of this? In outcome budgeting, what we generally do, that is the government of India, what does it generally do is, how much is the expenditure incurred for different schemes and what are the outcomes we are targeting, what are the outcomes we have achieved. All of this is measured. That is, in simple terms, under that, we are trying to connect input with the output, effectiveness. How we are spending, what is the outcome. Right? All of that is measured. That is called as an outcome budget. Now, the government of India simply says, we will try to apply the similar logic. It is done as of now. Right? We'll try to apply the similar logic to the central sector schemes and centrally sponsored schemes. That is, whenever a scheme is launched or extension is provided, we will try to find out what is the effectiveness. That is, what are the objectives with which the scheme has been launched. And are we trying to, or are we achieving those objectives? If the answer is yes, if there is a requirement of extension, we will provide it. If the answer is no, we are not trying to achieve those objectives, we are not able to achieve those objectives, in such cases, we might have a rethink regarding the implementation of. So, for the next cycle of the Finance Commission, the review of the central sector schemes, centrally sponsored schemes, is being conducted. Central sector scheme, the review is being done by a third party, that is, a different agencies. The centrally sponsored schemes are being reviewed by Niti Aayog. And under Niti Aayog, please remember this, there is an office, Development Monitoring Evaluation Office, DMEO. It is this DMEO which is involved in the evaluation of these particular. Done? Right. So this is a important update associated with the schemes announced, or let's say continuation of the by the central government. Next article, a very big article has been given in the science and tech page. Although the size of the article is very big, you need to focus on only two simple things. One, what is the reason why government of India is considering to fix the AC temperatures between 20 degrees to 28 degrees? I'll come to that. Right, 20 degrees to 28 degrees. And is there any health impact? Is there any health impact associated with this? Now listen to me carefully. The government of India very recently, right, the minister simply said, we are thinking of issuing a regulation, issuing a guideline to the AC manufacturers, wherein the ACs now will be having a temperature range between 20 degrees to 28 degrees. That is, you can either set at the lowest temperature 20, highest temperature 28. How it is different compared to the current system? Currently, many of the ACs, right, allow you to go down up to 18 degrees Celsius. There are some which will allow you to go up to 16 also. And right, the highest temperature generally allowed is 30 degrees Celsius. Now, why is the government of India thinking of restricting this to a range of 20 to 28 degrees Celsius? The reason is very simple. Twofold reasons. One, when you reduce the temperature, the consumption of electricity goes up. Very simple. When you reduce the temperature, the consumption of electricity, the demand for the electricity will go up. According to the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, BEE, every 1 degree change, right? Every 1 degree change in the AC temperature will either increase the demand for electricity by 6% or reduce the demand by 6%. That is how much is the electricity required to operate these particular ACs. So that is the first reason. Second reason, the health impact. Various studies have shown that when people are continuously exposed to the lower temperatures, that is, right, the room temperatures of 18 degrees and below, there are certain health effects of it. That is, the studies have shown that the people develop the risk of hypertension, asthma, respiratory infections, etc., etc. So government of India, citing these two reasons, now wants to basically, right, impose regulations on the companies manufacturing the ACs to have a range of 20 degrees to 28 degrees. Nothing beyond 28 degrees, nothing below 20 degrees Celsius as a setting of temperature in the AC. Right, so this is an update. This has created a lot of discussion. It has, in fact, one of the experts said it will basically push up the demand for the ACs now before the government will bring in the regulations. Because everybody would want, all of us, if given a choice, would want a higher range of temperature variation. I would want to keep 18 degrees if I want to. But if this regulation is implemented, the AC setting will not allow you to go below 20 degrees. Done? Okay. So these were the 9 articles as well as the concepts associated with the 9 articles I wanted to discuss with you people from the daily edition of today's Hindu newspaper. If you like this initiative, please do hit the like button. If you're yet to join our YouTube channel, do join the channel right now. And if you have any questions, concerns, do let me know now. And those who are watching the recorded session, drop in your comments. I'll address your questions. Now, if you have any concerns regarding whatever I've discussed, do let me know. Lalita Prasad Yadav, Sir DMEO. Sir by DMEO. What did I write? Yeah, DMEO. That is what I've written. Any question? Any question? Any doubts regarding whatever I've discussed today? Okay, so that's it from my side then. Those who are preparing for CSE 26 and 27, please do join the Platinum session today by Sarmad sir and tomorrow by Chethan sir. That's it. Take care. Have a great day.